the 5-year planning horizon to do this project. Anything out beyond 5 years, I'm not real comfortable playing with, because you're getting way out there with growth projections and...
That's when the engineer study doesn't, it becomes more attractive not to do the project, as I recall, the benefit was in the early years.
Well, and it is.
Yeah, so.
Any other questions for Laura? Would council like to proceed with resolution 1870?
I move we adopt resolution 1870 authorizing the filing of an application with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment for a loan under the Kansas Water Pollution Control Revolving Fund Act.
Second.
Motion Harrison, second Broxman, that we adopt resolution 1870. Harrison.
Yes.
Broxman.
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes.
Bodovich.
No.
Morrow.
Yes.
1870 passes. Business item number 4, consider approval of ordinance number 2394, adopting an access management code for the city of Gardner and amending Title 12 of the Gardner Municipal Code. David.
Could I suggest something?
Yes.
Early on here. Since it's very likely that we're going to be extending an offer to a city administrator candidate sometime in the near future, and one or both of those candidates or someone else might have a certain amount of expertise in the issues that are being discussed here as far as the access management code. I'd kind of like to see us table this item until after the new city administrator gets in place and has an opportunity to just give one more stamp of approval before it comes before us. But that's...
Are you making a motion on that? Why don't you make
well, I'm suggesting that maybe that's what we ought to do. I'll be glad to have a conversation, and but I'll be glad to make the motion.
Go ahead.
At some point. And if nobody else has anything to say, I will.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
I don't see the need, but I think that, in my opinion, I think that staff has done due diligence, we've discussed it. I personally don't see, and if somebody comes in and wants to relook at it, then they can make changes at that time. That's my
I guess, looking at it from a timeline standpoint, if we do it, we're looking at 45 to 60-day delay, give or take. I mean, based on.
There's a critical element to it that a 45 to 60 to the 90-day delay would create any. So I know this has been something that's been on the table for quite some time already.
Only comment I'd like to make, I did have the pleasure to spend some time with both of the applicants. I did mention that this was coming up. They were both very pleased to hear that we were getting ready to adopt an access management code. I think both of those individuals are familiar enough with this type of code that they would not find this thing unusual in any way, form, or fashion.
And I'm not saying that they would. With the city being on the cusp of making a decision like this, and somebody that might have another set of eyes, I just, if we've gone this long, why not let one more person take a look at it, give us
When they come in, they're going to have a whole lot more important things to do than access management. I mean, they're going to be jumping right into budget season, and so I mean, we're pushing out 45, 60 days, waiting for them to get hired and come on board. Then we're pushing it out even farther until we get done with budget season. then we're pushing out. There's no reason. To me, there's no reason to push it out any further. We go ahead and do this tonight, and then if they want to look at it when they come back in, then you can always do that later.
Is there a project driving this?
No, sir. This is a code that will help the city deal with the challenges we're going to face as we continue to develop. There's nothing that says you can't wait 40, 60 days. My recommendation, obviously, I do have a vested interest in it because we've been working on it diligently. I don't see there being any advantage to delaying because I don't see that whoever you may choose to hire would have an issue with it. Number two, as Councilman Brockstrom said, they're going to have a very full plate anyway, and this is going to be pretty, would be one detail they probably like to see done before they walk in the door.
Well, I agree. We get these packets on a week in advance. Honestly, I read the ordinance and the access management code in a portion of an evening. I don't know that this is going to require a tremendous amount of time for whoever the next city administrator is going to be to look it over, probably with a more educated eye than I have. Probably be able to ask you and Tim and whoever else a couple of smart questions, and I'm not even saying that I've got a problem with the ordinance or the plan. I'm just saying that this close to hiring another city administrator, if they've got some expertise in this, let's run it by them just once per,
Well, where do we stop doing city business?
We just did have
waiting
an
on
ordinance
somebody?
for storage lot, what?
Exactly,
where
and
do
that's what I
we
mean, where do we stop doing city business waiting on a new city administrator? I mean, we just passed an ordinance on storage lots, but that was okay, they might have had expertise on that also. I mean,
well, and there
so
again,
where do we stop? We just table everything until we hire a city administrator?
I guess,
You know,
my question is that what process did this not follow that it would otherwise follow with someone else in that role? I mean, we had Mike in that role. Mike certainly had experience.
I asked questions. I don't know how smart they were, but I certainly asked questions, and I felt that they had done their due diligence.
I guess at some point, I would hope that the city administrator that we hire would value the input of staff regarding these matters.
Well, I'm sure that they would. Like I said, I don't necessarily have a problem with this. We're that close. We've got 3 items left on the agenda. I'm not looking to table any of those. This is a little bit more in-depth than the city code issue was. And the city code issue was something that we've discussed at length, last fall. The city code is something that went through the planning commission and gained a unanimous approval from there before it got to us. This was just an exception. I would be glad to make a motion that we table it, and if I get voted down, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
In fact, I move that we table new business item number 4 for a future council meeting.
Second. Motion Morrow, second Podovich, that we table consideration of the access management code to a future date. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Question on the process. This is not an ordinance, we're just tabling the item. I don't need roll call, right? Okay. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Motion carries. New business item number 5, consider authorizing the interim city administrator to execute a contract with NJ Trenching Incorporated for the relocation or abandonment of waterline crossings of the BNSF right-of-way. David?
We have a water lines crossing at about 5 locations on BNSF tracks. Basically, anytime you cross BNSF, similar to if you cross a city street or a federal state highway, you have to have a permit. Generally, with BNSF permits, like any other permit, if they need you to move at their pleasure, which they're redoing track work, you move at your expense. There are about 5 locations that are involved. Kind of a rough drawing here, there's probably a little more detail. If one area at Sycamore, which would be on the right side of the drawing, at Center Street, about a quarter mile west of Center Street, and then there's some relocation at Waverly. The Waverly relocations basically are on new right-of-way. That would be at the railroad's expense. They would reimburse us. The total cost of this is $211,000 is the low bid, $210,823 to be precise. At the easternmost, the existing crossing is too high. Basically, they're going to have to come in and remove, because the other item too is you cannot, if your facility must be abandoned, it has to be removed. So we'll have to go into that location, pull the existing pipe, which is too high, install a new pipe. We're paying some extra because we're upsizing it to a larger pipe, so in the future, if we were to upgrade that particular line, which is a 12-inch to the north and a 10-inch to the south, we'd be able to do so. At Center Street, we have a 4 and an 8-inch line that's been abandoned for years, has to come out. Now, BNSF, that is included in this contract, but BNSF has already moved to do it with their own forces and bill us back because they had to for schedule purposes. So we'll have to be adjusting this contract to remove those. At the next crossing over, there's an abandoned line, has to be removed, and then finally, as we discussed at first, at Waverly, we have some crossings that need to be extended, the casings be extended. The total contract amount is $210,000. Of approximately $35,000 will be paid back to the city for the work that is BNSF expense, and we do not have a final accounting for the work that they are doing that's included in this, which we'll have to underwrite. As I say, we don't really have an option in this as part of our permit to cross their tracks. We have worked through the water fund. The water fund will absorb this. We're having to adjust it, but as I say, this is a cost of doing business and cost of crossing the tracks. We would recommend approval.
That shaded area, are those all tracks in that
That's
football-like little area?
that's in the grading area. Exactly. I was showing this more for the water line, exactly what's going on there. It's not our business, but it's railroad business. I can't give you an example of that other than the fact the purpose of the drawing was to show you where the work's going. Rather than the track work that's according to.
Thinking back, would there have been anything the city could have done to protect us from being put in this situation where they could dictate the terms and then we're just forced to pay for it? It's probably more of a Jim question. It's what happens when the railroad goes through town.
That's correct. Your water line crosses their right of way at, their privilege, and if they ever relocate it, then you have to relocate your utilities at your cost. That's just part of doing business with a state highway or a water district or, a railroad.
Very likely their tracks predated the water line. I think this was some of the first transcontinental line.
If they weren't laying new tracks, we would not be paying this.
That is correct. However, they're working within their right of way, and we have no choice.
So was this $210,000 cost in the original estimates of the intermodal projections on cost versus benefit?
No, sir. This would have probably been a rounding error in those first estimates.
Big number to me. It's the price of growth.
How would council like to proceed?
I move we authorize the interim city administrator to execute a contract with NJ Trenching in the amount of $210,823 for the relocation or abandonment of water line crossings of the BNSF railway right-of-way.
Second.
Motion Morrow, second Harrison, that we authorize the interim city administrator to execute a contract with NJ Trenching for relocation or abandonment of water line crossings of the BNSF right-of-way. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. New business item number 6, consider authorizing the interim city administrator to execute quitclaim deeds for 3 tracts adjacent to the maintenance shop at 329 South Meadowbrook Circle and accept quitclaim deeds from adjacent properties. David?
I'm going to drawing up that will help with this situation. The city shop property is pretty much shown with the heavier white line. Where this all stems from, we had, several years ago, had money budgeted, $15,000 to do a site plan and plat the property in anticipation of putting in a salt dome in kind of the southwestern part of it. However, since that was such a future project, after talking with the surveyor, we felt the best thing to do would be to get a topographic survey, which will be good anytime. One of the requirements for any kind of a site plan is the property must be platted. This is currently not platted. We would proceed with just going through the process to get the survey, plat the property, so at such time as we do start making changes to that, we have one of our requirements met. As part of that work, the area there, along the north line of the main part of the property, you'll see 2 red lines. Well, there is a 20-foot gap between what what the city owns and what the plumbing, the HVAC company on the west side of the shop, the American Legion, and then a small parcel to the east. It dates back to, as near as the abstractor could find, dates back possibly to the early 1900s. In consultation with Mr. Hubbard, the best way to clean up this, there are several processes, but as old as this is, the most cost-effective, the cleanest way to do it would be for the properties on the north side. I missed one vital thing. Right in the middle is a fence that's been there for 50 years. So all the properties on the north side of the fence have assumed they have owned to the fence. We have assumed we have owned to the south side of the fence. The process to clean this up would be for the properties on the north side to quit claim any interest they may have in this gap south of the fence to the city, and the city would quit claim any interest that the city may have in that gap to the properties on the north side. So the process, what we're asking to do is to, the first step would be to authorize approval of quitclaim deeds to 3 properties, which would be the Livingstons, which is the HVAC property to the west of the shop building, the American Legion, and then the larger property to the east of the American Legion. Following that, accept the quitclaim deeds that they have already signed to the city, and then we would proceed with filing both documents and clean up the gap. And the next step would be for Public Works to proceed with getting this property platted through the planning commission. Once again, the Livingstons are the 2 tracts that are west of the shop building, which is shown in kind of bold white. The next be to the American Legion, which is, of course, the property to the east, and then to Larry Daly, who owns the property to the east of the Legion. I hope I was able to explain. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for David? How would council like to proceed?
I move that we authorize the interim city administrator to execute quitclaim deeds for 3 properties adjacent to the maintenance shop at 329 South Meadowbrook Circle, and to accept quitclaim deeds from Leroy Hill Legion Building, Inc., Larry L. Daly, and Brian D. and Erica Livingston.
Second.
Motion Freeman, second Morrow. We authorize the interim city administrator to execute quitclaim deeds for the 3 stated properties. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, David.
Mr. Mayor?
Second, please. Before we go into executive session, typically if staff likes to leave, we move staff updates ahead of that particular item. So we have one this evening, I know, on the Aquatic Center from Jeff, and an update as well.
Sure. I'll just take a minute. As Memorial Day weekend approaches us, we've been very busy preparing for our 2012 aquatics season. The brochure has been designed and distributed to the public. All of you should have received one in the mail some time ago, outlining the activities and programs and just general operation, hours, fees, and so forth. No major changes of any kind this year. These stay the same. Hours of operation, schedule, everything stayed the same. As updated to you before, the pool painting project went very well with the lab lane pool. Turned out very well. That pool has been built and is currently operating. Been cleaning on the northern part of the facility and anticipate filling the northern pools this week. So that's progressing as scheduled. Staff has been hired, training is in progress and is going very well. We're going with Red Cross certification this year for the first time in well over 10 years, would be my guess. Red Cross has made some changes over the years and visited with a lot of other organizations that have been pleased with their operation. Very, very similar to the Ellis operation for licensing that we've been doing over the years. There will be some net savings to the city with this switch, so that's one of the reasons we're doing that. Pool passes have been selling. We had our early bird discount, which ended on Friday, so we were very busy up front on Friday with those wanting to take advantage of that. Swimming lesson registration has opened and has been going very well as well. So unless anybody has any questions about pool operations or preparing for that, just wanted to give you a quick update, let you know we're on schedule at this point to open Memorial Day weekend. And with the weather we've been having, the water temperatures may be just fine. I would like to also just give a real quick update on another matter. Of course, all of you are aware that Matt McClure has been out of the office now for a few months, caring for his family. His wife being in the car accident that she was in. Nikki continues to have amazing progress. Still got a ways to go, but she is home. I talked to Matt today, and her outpatient therapy starting next week will change over to the hospital here in town, so that will make things a bit more convenient for the family. And Matt will look to start coming back to work early next week, so we'll be very excited to have him back for multiple reasons. And he sounded good today and in good spirits to visit with, so wanted to give you a brief update on that too.
Tremendous, that's great news.
Thank you.
Any other items from staff? Anything for staff?
Two questions. One was the, I guess, the response to the public comments today. What is happening with regard to that road, and what changes have been made? I'm never seen that anywhere.
Well, design is proceeding as we had presented it to you. Currently, the project is, design should be complete. It's tying in with Grand Street as planned and shown on our land use plans for probably since the mid-90s. Grand Street was always planned to go through Plum Creek and connect across to Moonlight. That project is under design. Designs have not completed complete. However, to meet the schedule for both the benefit district, your annexation agreement with the school district, the road has to be completed by, early summer, late spring 2013.
I thought, as they did, that the road was going north. And
No.
they were not going to use that.
No, the way it was presented on all the documents, that was a future consideration. It wasn't part of this project. It's something to look at in the future at such time as a traffic signal may be needed. The engineer, traffic engineer, has conducted the warrant analysis for a traffic signal at that intersection. It's not warranted. Assuming a 5% growth in traffic, the engineer anticipates that traffic on Center would grow enough to make a signal warranted, but that's about 5 years out. You see slower growth, it may be later. The way it was presented to council was that that is a future project, not part of this. It's something to be looked at such time as we get closer to a traffic signal warrant being met, and look into relocating that intersection to the north.
Did the school say that?
You know,
I'm
when
just
we
trying to figure
talked,
out-
well, when we talked to the folks from the neighborhood, we said we were gonna discuss this, this evening, so we'll put it on a work session agenda to discuss and
Right.
talk about, and I think that would be appropriate, since, some of the folks that were here have left, and let's put it on an agenda.
So we already agreed to put it on an agenda.
No, we haven't. That's what has been asked. And so if you want to talk about it, tonight's not the time to talk about it. We could put it on an agenda and talk about it at a later date.
I would be for that.
Okay, the second thing is regarding the trade-in of the police vehicles. Chief Francis, after we voted on that, I got on Kelly Blue Book and saw that the trade-in value on those cars with really no options to them is about 50% higher than what we got. And that's in only fair condition. I was just wondering, do you use those numbers at all when you negotiate the trade-ins, or how does that work?
It was Captain Moore's project, so I will try to speak for him. Certainly it was discussed with me. Usually police cars, taxi cabs, things of that nature, have gone all the way from being towed to junkyards for scrap to here of late being traded in. And when I say here of late, in the past 5-6 years, have police departments been able to trade their vehicles in to find a dealer that would accept them. The practice protocol that occurs today is that whatever dealership that you're getting a bid from, what they do is call these resellers of police cars, and I think in this area there are but about 1 or 2 of those. One I know up off K32 and KCK. They come down, they take a look at the cars, and they then place a bid to purchase the cars. The dealership doesn't even see the cars. The dealership then turns around and says, all right, this was the price for a car. This is our bid minus those dollars. You may someday see Kelly Blue Book or some of those types of publications factor in usages, but as I say, traditionally police cars and taxi cabs and things of that nature, because of their type of use, are not rated the same as the same type of a vehicle or year or mileage or condition. In fact, I can remember in our time here of selling the old police cars for $200 a piece. We're now, if my memory serves me correctly, on this last go-around, I think on a couple of the models that were in pretty good condition, they were up in the area of $4,500. And that's for about a 5-year-old car with close to 90,000 miles on it that was a police cruiser. I think it speaks pretty well. Now, I understand what you're saying. If you or I owned the car and it was not had that kind of use now, sometimes unmarked cars, things of that nature, the resellers, what they do is take them to their places they will tend to replace the engines, transmissions, repaint them, sell them to small cities around the country, around the United States. And
I think they'd be worth more though, because they had beefed up engines, transmissions, and suspensions.
I'm sure that's a sales line that they try to use with the other cities that are buying them, but, and I'm not sure the Kansas law, I know in Missouri law, you have to declare to people that their police cars are taxi cabs, or you're in violation of the law, is how strongly they feel about it. But I'm not sure in Kansas you have to do that. But that's, I think the prices that we received were fair to above fair.
Yeah, I have a feeling that if I owned a Crown Vic, that there's only so many people that got sick in the back of them, tried to kick the doors off their hinges, or kick the back of the front seat and that kind of stuff.
That's why,
personal opinion.
that's why they have, you know, excellent, very good, good, and fair values.
Do you want to talk about this thing?
But no, I just wanted an explanation as to why they were, you know, why we got what we got when.
Okay.
I did, on that, since we brought that up, a point of clarification, I know Councilmember Flodovich brought up that the city of Leawood runs their vehicles considerably longer. That was the information he received. I had checked with the city and received a copy of their vehicle replacement policy, and for police vehicles, their replacement policy is 2 years and 88,000. So I believe all those vehicles exceeded that standard. They do allow for extended use for different vehicles, such as what we would have for community development, sedans, and so on. But for emergency vehicles, their requirements are much more stringent. So this is a point of clarification. And Councilman Wong.
I just wanted to thank the Gardner Police Department. I went on a ride-along, and when I realized what I had done, I had signed up to ride along on the 20th of April.
How'd you do?
I was a little concerned once I put it all together, but it was actually a very quiet night. I think maybe having the sheriff's deputies out here raiding a house might have kept things a little bit quiet, but had a very nice time. I drove around with Officer Hackler, who was a very impressive young officer that's a graduate of the local high school. Spent some time talking to Sergeant Belcher and seeing what our police officers are doing, and you know, it was a first-rate experience. And Chief, I want to thank you and your department for allowing me to go along, and if any of you haven't been before, I recommend it.
you're all welcome, and thank you for your comments.
All right, anyone else? All right, entertain a motion to go into executive session. Please read the motion as indicated. We need a time of entry and a time of to return to, or to resume regular session. How much, you know, from a time standpoint, 30 minutes?
We talked about half an hour.
30 minutes?
Last meeting, yeah.
30 minutes, okay.
8:35 and 9:05.
Yep, that'll work.
I move we recess into executive session to discuss personnel matters relating to non-elected personnel, specifically regarding applicants for the city administrator position, beginning at 8:35 p.m., returning to regular session at 9:05.
Second.
Motion Harrison, second Freeman, that we recess into executive session to discuss personnel matters relating to non-elected personnel, specifically regarding applicants for the city administrator position, beginning at 8:35 p.m., returning to regular session at 9:05 p.m. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Take care of yourself. Bye, Chief.
You don't know. Jim, do you know? Do they anticipate action after? You don't know?
Yes. Yeah.
This next 30 minutes is going to be exciting video time.
But you want my note to remind you to turn it off?
Yeah, I've got one actually.
Better memory than me.
No, actually, Laura,
Have a postie.
Catch them both. Sign that game.
the mayor has to call you. Yeah, I can get him to you tomorrow.
Will he be in tomorrow? I'll probably deliver it tomorrow morning.
Well, he'll be in tomorrow.
There.
He's gonna sign it tonight.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm working on it, I'm working.
Can you send me an email if they take action on anything other than adjournment rehab?
What now? I'm sorry?
If they take action on something other than adjournment
Other than,
Adjourning.
oh, okay, gotcha. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry. Need to enunciate and speak up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Stick around and tackle it for you if you need. I'll stick around and tackle it for you if you need me. There.
Jim, let me do my job.
Just if you need any extra strawberries.
They'll have to wait, they can wait.
Does he ever come in any other time?
He did, but I needed a phone thing. Have a good night.
You too, Judy.
I'll get with you first thing tomorrow
Okay.
on this contract.
Yep, thank you very much.
You're welcome.